I want you to close your eyes for a second and just picture a Hawaiian sunrise.
Mhm.
Seriously, just imagine it.
You're probably seeing exactly what the brochures want you to see, right?
Exactly. The pristine beaches, the gentle waves lapping against the shore, luxury hotels with those crisp white sheets.
Oh, yeah, and a sky painted in perfect shades of orange and pink. I mean, it is the ultimate postcard of paradise.
It really is. But today, I need you to pivot your imagination. We're going to look at a very different kind of Hawaiian sunrise. Same island, same sun, but instead of a luxury balcony, you are looking out the window of a fast food restaurant.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. It is 7 a.m. A mother and her 21-year-old daughter are just finishing a really grueling graveyard shift at Jack in the Box.
Wow. All night on their feet.
Right. They're exhausted, their feet are aching, and they aren't heading to a warm bed. They're walking out to wait an hour for a transit van.
Just waiting an hour after working all night.
Yeah, and that van is going to take them on a massive journey across the island, literally just to reach a homeless shelter.
Man, that contrast really breaks the fantasy, doesn't it? But it represents the escalating reality for the actual local workforce. I mean, we're looking at the people who pour the coffee and clean the sheets so that the postcard can exist for everyone else.
That dynamic is the core of our deep dive today. We're unpacking a truly eye-opening piece of reporting from Invisible People. It's titled 6 Shifts a Week, Nowhere to Sleep by a journalist named Jocelyn Figueroa.
Right, and before we even get into the data, you really need to understand the lens this is written through. Jocelyn Figueroa is herself formerly homeless.
Which is huge. She has lived in shelters. She has navigated these exact systems.
Yeah, and when a journalist brings that kind of lived experience to a story, they completely bypass that academic detachment that usually clouds this topic. They don't just look at a shelter wait list as a statistic.
Right. They know the visceral exhaustion of a 90-minute commute after an overnight shift.
Exactly. They ask fundamentally different questions because they understand the mechanical failures of the system from the inside out.
Well, our mission today, alongside you, the listener, is to explore this severe affordability crisis on Oahu. We're going to look at why working incredibly hard is just no longer enough to stay housed.
And we have to examine that collision course between Hawaii's massive tourism engine and its local workforce.
Okay, let's unpack this.
So the macro data surrounding housing crises can be incredibly dense and abstract. To understand what is actually happening on Oahu, we have to look at the micro-reality first. We have to look at the Pitero family.
Right. Let's follow Anderita Pitero and her 21-year-old daughter, Marianina. I mentioned their 7 a.m. sunrise a moment ago. Their shift ends, but they don't get to just go home and sleep.
No, they have to wait an hour for the handy van.
Yeah, the handy van. That's Honolulu's transit service for people with disabilities. And they're doing this after a night of intense physical labor.
It's just wild.
Andrina has worked at this exact same Jack in the Box for 14 years. And for 12 of those years, she has worked the overnight shift.
12 years of overnights.
Yeah. Right now, she and her daughter are working 6 graveyard shifts a week.
A mother and daughter both working 6 physically demanding overnight shifts every single week. I mean, that completely shatters the most pervasive stereotypes surrounding the unhoused population.
Oh, absolutely.
The dominant cultural narrative insists that homelessness is, a result of refusal to participate in the workforce or laziness. But the Peter family proves the exact opposite. They're participating to the point of absolute physical exhaustion.
And the physical toll is just brutal. When that handy van finally arrives at 8:15 a.m., Marianne has to physically help her mother into the vehicle because Anderina suffers from severe gout in her knees.
Oh, that is incredibly painful.
Yeah, she's limping after standing all night. They pay their $2.25 fare, their seats at the back, and begin a 90-minute ride.
90 minutes.
Yes. They are traveling all the way to the Kaulu Waiane shelter, which is located on the complete opposite end of the island. And Marianina told the reporter something that really stuck with me. She said about this daily ordeal, it's not hard, it's just tiring.
That stoicism masks a terrifying level of physical deterioration. Managing a condition like severe gout while working on your feet all night, only to be subjected to an hour and a half in a bumpy transit van every single day.
Yeah, it's unimaginable.
It requires a sheer endurance that most people just cannot fathom. Time itself becomes a tax. They're spending hours every day just trying to reach a temporary bed.
And what triggered this entire nightmare is perhaps the most unsettling part.
Yeah?
They weren't evicted in October of 2024 because they got fired or made some reckless financial decision.
Right.
Their rent simply increased. The landlord raised the price, and their combined wages from 6 overnight shifts a week could no longer cover the cost of a basic apartment.
Which is terrifying.
And because they lost that lease, the family has been completely fractured.
Yeah, because the shelter system is simply not architected to absorb multi-generational family units, especially those with complex medical needs.
No, not at all.
When you lose the physical container of an apartment, the family unit often shatters geographically.
And that's exactly what happened here. Andorina's youngest son is developmentally disabled. Because they couldn't find a shelter that could accommodate his needs, he had to be placed in a care home in Iwa Beach.
So he's separated from them.
Right. Another son and his girlfriend managed to get into a Catholic Charities shelter in Waikiki. And then Andorina and Marianena are way out on the Waianae coast.
A single rent increase scattered a family across an entire island?
Yeah. The societal rule we're taught from childhood is work hard, play by the rules, and you get a home. Looking at Andorina, working 6 graveyard shifts for 14 years, that isn't just a glitch in the American dream formula. The formula itself is built on a mathematical assumption that just no longer applies.
Exactly. The assumption was always that local wages would dictate local housing prices. If the jobs in a town paid $10 an hour, the rent in that town would reflect what someone making $10 an hour could afford.
Makes sense.
Right. But on an island like Oahu, that mathematical link has been completely severed. You have global wealth flowing in, purchasing real estate, and inflating the market to an international standard. Meanwhile, local wages remain pegged to the service industry.
Well, let's dig into that math, because the Piteros are not an anomaly here. The recent data shows they are the face of a surging trend.
Yeah, let's look at the numbers.
We have the point-in-time count, a PIT count, from January 25, 2026. This count revealed 4,539 homeless people on Oahu. Now, the overall number is only slightly higher than 2024.
But the makeup of that number is what's changing.
Exactly. Looking deeper, the unsheltered population doubled between 2014 and 2024. A decade ago, the majority of homeless people on Oahu were in shelters. By 2024, nearly 2/3 were out on the streets.
That doubling is a direct result of the systemic overflow we just talked about. The emergency shelter infrastructure remained relatively static while the displacement rate basically accelerated.
Right. But I am looking at the internal trends for 2026, and I need you to help me understand this part. The data shows that unsheltered individual homelessness actually decreased by 20%, and single individuals moving into shelters increased by 35%.
Right, so things are theoretically improving for single adults.
Yeah. But family homelessness shot up almost 20% since 2024, and a staggering 43% since 2022. I just don't get it. Shouldn't a family unit with multiple incomes be safer from eviction than a single adult? Why are families spiking so violently?
What's fascinating here is the mechanics of what happens when the economic floor drops. You are right that historically families pool resources to avoid displacement.
Yeah, you split the rent.
Exactly. But the gap between wages and rent on Oahu has grown so immense that even 3 pooled service industry incomes cannot secure a 3-bedroom apartment anymore.
Wow.
And single adults are easier to house in the current system because a single cot in a dormitory-style shelter solves their immediate physical need.
Oh, I see.
A family of 4, potentially with mixed genders or teenagers, you can't just place them in a giant open room of single men. They require private units, which are incredibly scarce.
That makes total sense.
So the interventions for single adults are working, but the working class families are hitting a sheer mathematical wall where their pooled income just means nothing.
And the collateral damage extends to the next generation, right? Hawaii is now tied with places like D.C., Oregon, New York, and Alaska for the highest share of homeless youth in the entire country.
That is heartbreaking.
And they have the smallest share of homeless youth who actually possess a high school diploma. I mean, if you don't have a stable place to sleep and your family is scattered across the island, graduating high school becomes a near impossible logistical hurdle.
Geography becomes destiny. On an island, you can't just drive 2 hours inland to a cheaper state or a more affordable suburb. You hit the ocean.
Right. You're trapped.
The land is finite, it's really commodified, and rigidly zoned.
Which perfectly explains where all these displaced families are ending up. The reporting shows that homelessness on Oahu is becoming heavily concentrated. People are being pushed to the west side of the island.
Yeah, out to the margins.
Right. In areas like Iwa Beach and Kapolei, the unhoused population increased by 42%. And the Waiana Coast, where Andorina travels every morning, is now home to the largest unsheltered communities on the entire island.
Right.
But the critical failure is that there are simply too few emergency shelters in that specific area.
They are experiencing economic exile. They are priced out of the urban and resort centers where they work, pushing them to the edges of the island. But the social safety net, the actual physical shelters and social services, did not migrate to the margins with them.
No.
That is exactly why you see 90-minute transit rides just to reach a bed.
And inevitably, on a small island, heavily dependent on visitors, these two worlds are going to collide. You have an unhoused population that makes up the local workforce, and you have a global tourism sector that drives the economy.
It's a recipe for major conflict.
It is. The article highlights the immense friction this creates. It quotes a visitor named Aidan Moffat, who encountered visible encampments. He basically said, "I didn't expect it. I thought it would be a nicer area, cleaner." Then you get people like that who affect the area, make it look trashy.
Yeah, because the tourism industry is built entirely on selling an uninterrupted fantasy of paradise. When the visual reality of a severe housing crisis breaches that fantasy, the economic engine of the state feels threatened.
And it shows up directly in the economics of the hotels. There was a TripAdvisor review for the Hale Koa Hotel, left by a tourist from Santa Clarita, California.
What did they say?
They complained about stepping out onto their lanai to what they called a, quote, view of a beach-gone ghetto.
Wow.
Yeah, they essentially threatened the local economy, pointing out that Hawaii's revenues rely on tourism and stating that literally thousands of other vacation destinations exist.
And you better believe local businesses are reacting to that threat.
Oh, absolutely. In Chinatown, some business owners have actually resorted to using leaf blowers to physically move people who are camping in front of their properties.
Because business owners are watching their livelihoods evaporate if tourists take their dollars to another island. They are reacting with hostility because they feel backed into an economic corner by a problem they cannot individually solve.
But the impossible catch-22 here is glaring. The tourists are demanding a pristine, idealized environment for the thousands of dollars they spent to visit. Yet, the very people keeping that environment running, the fast food workers, the hotel maids, the service staff, cannot afford to live in the economy those tourists are funding.
It's so unsustainable.
It's like an engine burning its own oil to keep running. The tourism machine is consuming the very workforce it needs to operate, punishing them for being visible when they literally have nowhere else to go. I really want to ask you, the listener, what stands out to you about this dynamic?
It's a huge contradiction.
Right. You cannot demand cheap labor and simultaneously demand that the laborers remain completely invisible when the math of their survival no longer works.
This raises an important question. How does a local economy balance the aesthetic demands of the visitors who fund it with the bare survival realities of the workforce that sustains it?
Yeah.
If the state prioritizes hiding the unhoused to protect hotel reviews, they aren't solving the displacement. And if the workers who pour the coffee and clean the sheets eventually leave or collapse from exhaustion, well, the tourism industry seizes up anyway.
So, facing this extreme tension, what actual mechanical strategies are Oahu officials putting on the table? How do you diffuse this?
Well, the reporting outlines two distinct approaches the government is attempting right now.
First, there's a geographic relocation strategy, right?
Yes. The homelessness coordinator, John Mizuno, noted that the state is actively funding flights to send homeless individuals who originated from other states back to the mainland.
As long as they have family there to receive them, I think.
Right. That intervention is essentially an acknowledgement that people who moved to the island and fell out of the economy might have stronger pre-existing support networks back in their state of origin. By flying them back, the state is trying to alleviate the immediate pressure on the local shelter system.
Okay, but here's where it gets really interesting, though. The second approach is looking inward at the indigenous culture of the island.
Yes.
The state is rapidly deploying something called kahali shelters. City officials have pledged to open these within 6 months.
And the reporting notes this is absolutely critical because more than half of Oahu's homeless population is Native Hawaiian.
Right.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the Kahali model is a profound mechanical shift in how we approach the concept of housing. For decades, the Western model of housing, which relies on individualized, isolated apartments governed by strict leases, has been imposed on a culture with a very different historical relationship to community.
So how does a kahali shelter actually work, mechanically? How is it different from the giant warehouse of cots we usually picture when we hear the word shelter?
It operates as a micro-village. Instead of plumbing and wiring massive, expensive apartment complexes, a kahali consists of very small, individual sleeping units, often tiny homes.
Okay.
And they're clustered around shared communal spaces. There is a central shared kitchen, shared restrooms, and a communal gathering area.
So it drastically reduces the construction costs and the timeline to build, while also solving the isolation problem.
Precisely. It restores a sense of shared responsibility. In a traditional shelter, you are an isolated case number. In a kahale, you are part of a governed community.
That sounds vastly better.
It is. Neighbors watch each other's children, they cook together. It relies on the traditional native Hawaiian concept of communal living, recognizing that social connection and shared resources are just as vital to human survival as a roof.
And that communal land-based perspective actually echoes a really powerful moment at the very end of the article.
Oh, with Andorina.
Yes. Andorina Pidero is reflecting on her exhausting transient life on Oahu, and she compares it to her home country of Micronesia. She tells the reporter, "In my country, we don't pay rent. We sleep free, we eat free, we had our own land, we built our own house, we have our own ocean, we fish, we get food, we eat breadfruit."
Wow.
Yeah. She's describing a paradigm of living where the basic necessities for survival are entirely decoupled from a wage economy.
It is a stunning contrast. You have the modern, hyper-commodified real estate market of Hawaii, where a woman can work 6 overnight shifts a week for 14 years and still not secure a place to sleep.
Just to end up on a bus for 90 minutes.
Right. And you contrast that with a traditional model where shelter and food are derived directly from the community and the land, not purchased with an hourly wage. Andorina's memory exposes just how deeply unnatural the modern housing market has become.
It really does.
Culturally resonant solutions like the kahali model might be the only way to bridge that enormous gap.
It reveals that our current system of leases, evictions, and astronomical rent isn't a force of nature. It's a constructed set of rules. And if we built those rules, we have the power to change them.
We really do.
We've covered massive ground today. We started in the dark at 7 a.m., riding a bumpy handy van for 90 minutes with Andorina and Marinena just to reach a temporary bed on the Waianae coast.
And we examined the underlying math. The brutal reality that unsheltered populations doubled over a decade and family displacement spiked 43% in just 2 years because the economic floor fell out for the working class.
We looked impartially at the intense friction between a global tourism industry demanding a pristine paradise and a local workforce that is being punished for simply existing in the open.
Yeah.
And finally, we explored the mechanical solutions, from mainland flights to the rapid deployment of kahali villages. I want to remind you, the listener, why this specific deep dive into Oahu matters to wherever you are right now.
It's not just an island problem.
Exactly. The widening chasm between local wages and the cost of rent isn't just a Hawaiian phenomenon. It is magnified by the geographic boundaries of an island, but it's happening everywhere, from coastal cities to landlocked factory towns.
The tension we see in Hawaii is a preview of the pressure building in housing markets globally.
When the people who perform the essential everyday labor can no longer afford to live in the community they serve, the foundation of that community is entirely compromised. I want to leave you with a final, lingering thought to explore on your own today.
What's that?
We just discussed how a return to a traditional native Hawaiian village model, the kahali, might be the most effective mechanical fix for a modern housing crisis that Western real estate economics completely failed to solve.
Right.
If an indigenous communal model is the key to fixing this modern failure, what other advanced economic systems in our society are actually fundamentally broken? And what other massive systemic problems could we solve tomorrow simply by looking to the past?
Sometimes the most innovative path forward is remembering how we used to live.
The next time you picture that beautiful, idyllic Hawaiian sunrise, remember the mother and daughter watching that exact same sun come up through the window of a fast food restaurant, doing everything society asked of them and still waiting for a place to call home. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Take care of yourselves and keep asking the hard questions.
Perfectly homeless is more than a phrase. It's a perspective. If you'd like to support our channel and help us keep exploring these vital topics, click on over to the Perfectly Homeless Etsy store. Pick up a warm hoodie with our logo and support the channel. Perfectly Homeless is a brand built from real life and real lessons. Wear the message of freedom and support the Perfectly Homeless mission.